What's up, peers, and welcome to Open Source Everything here on the World Crypto Network, the show where we talk about amazing tech and software and hardware that is happening mostly in Bitcoin, but especially that is truly open source for and liberating software and hardware. Really looking forward to this. And we are joined by Kris here from Satoshi's House today. So what's up, Kris? Oh, you're muted.
Hello, guys. I'm glad and excited to be here. My first live stream ever. So yeah, super excited, a little bit nervous, but I get to talk about something I love and have passion for. So yeah, just glad to be here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's always nice of getting the word out for cool stuff and cool projects that are happening in Bitcoin. And yours, I think, is definitely one of them. So thanks for reaching out and introducing the project, which is always nice. So yeah, let's basically get into it. I'll try to share my screen and hope that it works. Today we're talking about Satoshi House, which you can find on Twitter, link in the description, and especially the co-working space that is focused on Bitcoin and especially open source development and decentralization in both software and hardware. It will have a massive impact of the future. They aim to be the place where people can come to build the future. We want to be the place people come to learn about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, open source, and decentralization. Our ideology is educate and encourage development and research. All our projects will be published on our GitHub page, and you can check out the GitHub page for all the cool stuff that is happening on there. We have a guest house, co-working space, private office, and there's also a restaurant on the premise. Are you interested in mining? They also operate a mining farm, where you can learn about the mining or experiment with some hard and software. And this all is located in Northern Thailand. And quite a cool place. Looks like a nice building, and especially good people there. So, Kris, could you go a bit more in detail on what the Satoshi House is and what was your aim of doing it?
Yeah, sure. So the whole idea has been, I think, kind of coming over the last few years when I've been getting into Bitcoin and Bitcoin kind of taking over more and more of my time. And the idea is to give a place where people can meet, but people can also be away from distractions and work on some projects, whether it's coding, developing new apps, or really work on the protocol level. And my passion is Bitcoin, so obviously I will promote development in Bitcoin, but also any kind of open source projects. That's really important. That's the way I see the future is going in, and the smart businesses will work on open source and not work on closed source or proprietary projects. Decentralization is important, but it's also not important in everything. So, that's what we want to support: open source, Bitcoin, and any project that really has a potential or a chance to change the status quo or where we are today. So we like disruption, and that's the whole idea. And we started small. We got a small guest house. We got 3 rooms. We got a smaller office for private meetings. We got a bigger office where people can co-work together. We also have a small mining operation running, which people can, like you said, experiment with miners, because I think we need a lot of development in both software and hardware. And Brains OS, they did a great job coming out with new firmware for the Bitmain and the T1 miners, I believe. I haven't tried it yet. I'm still testing Bitmain's own software, which kind of failed a little bit, but they came up with a new patch. So probably tomorrow I'll install the Brain OS software and see the difference. Like to be making some comparisons there, but open source is for sure the way to go with this. Yeah, and I think we should encourage open source development, encourage and educate. That's what it really is about. And we need to be humble to people who want to learn about Bitcoin, and we need to help them, educate them, and get them to ask more questions and go out and do their own research and come back with even more questions. Those things are really, really important. We can't tell everybody everything, and we definitely don't want to. We want to make people curious and fall down the rabbit hole like we all did, I guess.
Oh yeah, amazing. And I think the first realization with any open source project or ideology or philosophy is the realization that information is a non-scarce good. It can be shared with anyone at basically no cost. Because if Alice shares an idea, a thought, a song with Bob, then she still retains this music or this idea. Rather, it doesn't diminish, rather it grows as more people get access to this information and can apply it in their life. And the realization of sharing this information, having the biggest impact that you want to manifest with your project or your software or whatever it is, can only be achieved when sharing the idea where the community can build around. So how is your experience with sharing this information and being transparent and having the code on GitHub and being active and transparent in the community?
I think this is really important. We're just starting up the guest house, so really I would like to open source. I mean, you can really open source a physical product pretty easily, but how to open source a service, for example, like a guest house. So this is something really interesting to me. And I think, of course, you share the information and you get knowledge back from people having other ideas, and that can build on top of that. And this will all come back to you in one way or another. You will learn from it. You will learn. I probably did some mistakes, and I will learn from them. And I'll probably find out some people did some really cool stuff, and I can build on that. So it's all what you put in there, you will actually get back, and you'll get so many more ways of using this. So I think it's super important, whatever we do, share it, keep it open. Information should be out there for free for everybody to use to make cool projects and make the world a better place, really. I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but I guess that's what we're here for. We want to make everything accessible. People can make up their own mind how they can use this technology. Of course, some people will use it for bad, do some bad stuff, but most people will use it for good stuff. But we can't ban everybody because a few bad apples. So I think it's super important, just share what you do, get input from others, learn from that, and make it better and work together instead of working alone. And it's so much more fun to work as a community. So yeah, I think open source everything, it's a great show, and I think we should have more of these shows where we actually not only talk about projects that we're doing today, but probably more the importance of open sourcing, what effect it will have in like maybe 10, 15 years, maybe even 5 years. So, the potential in open source is huge. And I think actually we have both Windows and Linux to thank for this. Because without Windows, we probably wouldn't have Linux. So Windows was the bad guy at this point, and Linux was the good guy. And so I think, it started a really interesting development of open source culture and open source development. So yeah, I think super excited about open source. Like I say, both hardware and software. Like Puris, they did a great job open sourcing a laptop and a mobile phone, I think. So I encourage more of that. I would like to see, for example, open source hardware for miners, where you can put your own miner together. You can choose the components, what are cheapest or best accessible for you. So, there's so many things that we can do with open source. Build your own TV, build your own laptop, build your own coffee machine. There's so many options. Build your own water filter, for example. Um, and we have a lot of that on YouTube where people share how to do stuff. And this is more or less open sourcing. But we don't actually call it open sourcing today. We call it DIY.
Exactly, and this aspect of sharing is so important, and sharing information, right? Not sharing your scarce goods, but sharing your non-scarce goods, your ideas and the emotions that made you express during these ideas. So it's quite interesting to have this not just a transparent and communicative, but cooperative community. And I especially enjoy this in Bitcoin, as I think has one of the best communities in the space, not just incredibly smart entrepreneurs and developers and engineers, but just good people all around. I think with a good moral compass, and especially with the willingness and the stamina of actually manifesting change. And I think another great point of example is the co-working spaces, right, where you can come in and use a apartment or office space to collaboratively work on your ideas and project. And first, you're in a lot of communication in these setups, right? Because it is an open space where you're kind of forced to talk to the people. And out of this arises new connections, a bigger network, a stronger network effect, and ultimately more power to your idea, which will manifest in a great product or a great service or just a great venture in general, which you're working. And of course, Satoshi's house is, upon others, a co-working space. Why do you think is a co-working space and open source projects such a nice fit? And what is your approach for doing this with Satoshi's house?
So I think the co-working space and open source goes really well hand in hand, because you can have individual persons working, but you can also have people working together on projects, and that will make it so much. You'll get so much more feedback and input on what you're doing, but you also get some new angles on what you're doing. So I think the co-working space and open source, and also a guest house where you can really keep focused on what you're doing. So I think it's like the glove just fits. And we were running a bar for 8 years, and we started accepting Bitcoin, but also our bodies and minds got a little bit tired of running a bar, late nights, many late nights. And Bitcoin started taking up more and more of my time, and most of my friends in the bar were getting tired of listening to me talking about Bitcoin. So I think this was a natural progression for us to do something and give something back to the community of open source and Bitcoin, to have a place where people can come and work, but also can have some good brainstorming and figure out some new stuff. And what my passion really lies is in, like I say, educating about Bitcoin, but also encouraging your own research development on Bitcoin. Because I think today we're only scratching the surface on what Bitcoin actually can be. I see Bitcoin as a protocol and a technology that we haven't really understand what we can do with yet. It's very similar to email. I mean, internet. The only thing we could do we did for a long time was email. And that's the thing. Like, Bitcoin can be so much more. And this is where I really want to encourage research, development, crazy brainstorming sessions, see where we are in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, what is social impact it will have, and how would we get to those points. This is really where my passion is, and I think to get there we need to encourage and educate people about Bitcoin. And with educating about Bitcoin, it's also really important to understand what we have to compare Bitcoin with our traditional financial system today. And I think, when I came into Bitcoin, I learned a lot about what today's traditional financial systems are, which I probably didn't understand that much before. So I think it's important for people to understand from what we are going, or from where we're coming, and what the goals is. And then when people start understanding the logic behind it, it'll be much easier for people to understand why we're doing this and why this is the right way, and probably the only way to move away from the systems that we have today. But this will take time, and this is where we want to encourage, and like I say, brainstorming, research and development. But before we reach to those points where Bitcoin can be something more than it is today, we need to have the store of wealth or store of value. We need to have a currency. We need to have a peer-to-peer payment system. Those steps can be done before we can move forward, because we're still figuring out there's so much potential, and I'm just so excited to see what we can do with it in the future.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And the discrepancy between, let's say, the incumbent financial system and Bitcoin, especially in the philosophy of open source, is tremendous. And I have the privilege of experiencing these both sides quite currently, with doing my bachelor's degree at Deutsche Bank and being part of the Bitcoin community. There are two completely opposing systems of management and organization. And on the one side, you have the incumbent system with a hierarchical and compartmentalized setup, which means that you have a chain of command, right? You have to report to this person who is higher in the command or in the hierarchy, and he can give you the orders and instructions of what to do, basically. Thus, there is no permissionless innovation, right? There is no reckless innovation without first asking for the permission to do so, and first identifying the problem in this hierarchical structure. So even if let's say a lower person understands the problem and has a way of fixing it and the motivation of doing it, it is not easy to get the ball rolling without that the higher hierarchy knows of this problem and understands the importance of fixing it. So the miscommunication here is a big part, and miscommunication is also the struggle for the second part of this type of hierarchy, which it is compartmentalized. So there are different silos of information, and the one department doesn't really communicate with the other department, and maybe they're working on the same problem and could collaborate or know the solution to a problem that the other department is having. But there is a lack of communication between these silos of information. And Bitcoin, on the other hand, is completely flat. So there are no leaders. There is no one giving orders. Everyone is working out of their own accord and out of their voluntary contribution, and oftentimes donation of their time. And there is immense amount of communication between all stages. So repeatedly, you realize that the entire Bitcoin community is at least not hindering the communication. They might not actively be communicating with everyone, but at least they're trying to. They're trying to achieve this. So having a permissionless and flat hierarchy that has immense amounts of transparency and communication leads to incredible advances and incredible innovation. Which is why open source is so innovative and so reckless in its design.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe innovation should be permissionless. You shouldn't be able to have to ask your boss for permission to develop something or work on something. Maybe my boss don't understand what I'm explaining, and he says, "No, you can't waste my time and money on that." So I think the permissionless innovation, this actually accelerates innovation, and the drive and the passion for innovation can't be hold. I mean, it can be held back by hierarchy, but it shouldn't. And the people who still have a bigger passion, they will go out, they will quit their job or do this after work or on the lunch break, and they will keep on innovating. So I think the open source vehicle is the right vehicle. And I think really what we need to get, we understand it, developers, most of the developers understand this, but we need to get the people in the management and in the leader roles in the companies to understand this. So, I think these are the people we really need to get to. And though many of them, they normally don't want to listen to that, because then they can't play bosses anymore. So I think this is our big challenge, encouraging management, mid-level, higher up management of if a guy or girl comes and talk to you and wants to do something, let them do it and let them show you why, not explain to you why. They will probably figure out something that the boss don't understand. So I think, yeah, open source is the only way to go in any way. And I think this is what we should educate about, because it will have a massive impact. And, it will be the companies that there's many companies that are going to be left behind when it comes to open source development, because they haven't been encouraging this in their company structure. And there is many ways you could actually encourage this in your company, and not having only set assignment and set tasks. Of course, in a company structure, you probably need that as well to get some work done. But you can also give away some time to your employees to work on some projects during the work hours, which would further the company, but also that will be accessible for more than the company. And then the company can figure out a business model around open source. This is what's really interesting. So you could accept, for example, give some consultancy service or something like that. You could sell some aftermarket products for it, some extra features. So there's many ways of doing it. And I think we just need to get this into bigger company cultures. That's the important part. And I think we still need to keep on educating everybody about open source and the importance. So they go and ask the boss, can I work on this for an hour? Let's say if I can work an hour a day, or maybe an hour every 2 days or 3 days, that's not a bad start. So, this is how we can slowly work our way into the corporate structure.
Yeah, and you bring up a fascinating point, which is the financing or the making sure that bills are being paid for open source projects is interesting, because as I said, open source relies on first and foremost the fact that information is a non-scarce good and shall therefore be shared freely, because there is no marginal cost for producing this extra unit of information by giving it away, right? However, not everything is a non-scarce good. A lot of things are scarce. For example, the pieces of paper here in this block, which I take my notes on, are scarce goods. If Alice hands this physical block over to Bob, she no longer has it, right? However, the ideas that are written on these pieces of paper and the information that is being transmitted is a non-scarce good and can thus be shared freely. So if Alice first reads what is written in this book and then hands it over, she has relinquished control on the physical paper, the scarce paper, but she has not relinquished control and access to the ideas. And that is where the tricky part lies in. We have to, with every open source project, find the scarce attribute that is involved, something that cannot be replicated and shared with everyone because property rights apply. And as soon as there are property rights, there should be free and voluntary exchange of the goods and services. So although the information and the ideas transmitted are shared, there's always a part that is non-scarce and that should be exchanged for. So that includes, for example, a book that is printed on a piece of paper, right? That contains the scarce paper. So you charge a price for the physical book, not for the PDF, because the PDF document is a pure non-scarce good. Or, for example, as you mentioned, the time and your attention. So if you are consulting someone and giving a one-on-one information transmission session and applying that in the meat space world, where you can only focus on one task and one task only, thus your time and attention is a scarce good. So that can have a price as well. Or another part would be a physical product. So maybe selling a custom hardware that you have put together. That is hardware, scarce good, thus you can charge a price for it. And maybe add the software as an open source Libre and free, gratis software on top. So it's always interesting to find these nuances on where we can charge something in free exchange and where we should give away because the basic good is a non-scarce one.
I totally agree with that. And there's a couple of things that are scarce today, and that's time and Bitcoin. And I think this is going to be the balance. It's going to be the companies that have, how would I put it, kind of a smarter business idea and longer vision. They will start with the open source before other companies, and they will have a head start because they can see the future and figure out a business model where they can charge for the time and the services. But the information is there, like you say, and anybody can use that information and make different implementations, so whether it's hardware or software. But probably this company has put in a lot of time of figuring most things out, and they can offer consultancy services, they can offer support, they can offer probably other services on top of their open source information. And this is, I see, where new innovative companies, they will have the advantage of the old company structures that don't really see this as an opportunity. And I think I hope at least, new companies that come into any kind of development, whether it's hardware or software, will see this as an opportunity to open source the information and then sell aftermarket services like consulting, support, extra add-ons. So I think this is totally the way to go. I hope we will see it in more forms, like search engines, more web browsers. I think, like, for example, mesh networking, super interesting. I would like to see some more open source on mesh networking. Everybody could build their own little receiver transmitter. Any kind of communication should be open source. That's kind of the fundamental. Same as we'll have Bitcoin is open source. We have Linux obviously is open source, but we don't have that much for communication, direct communication, that is open source today. So I think these are super important things to keep communication open and free.
Exactly, yes. And although open source is a lot about the information and spreading of ideas, it is also very important about applying this information and doing it on an individual basis. So if you have a problem in your software and you then have a responsibility of fixing it, right? You have the responsibility to contribute to the products that you're actually using, and that goes especially for the software. So if you see the problem, you can figure out where the problem is, and you can fix it. You should fix it for yourself, at least to a degree that you're able to, and then ask for help for the rest. So the idea of applying this information and making sure that the end product is worthy and is actually valuable is quite important. And so the interesting thing I would have to you for as an open source entrepreneur is how have you applied your ideas and your thoughts in Bitcoin, and what are you currently working on?
So I've been sharing everything I do. We got a small Telegram group where when we started setting up a small mining operation, I shared my business plan there with everybody in the group just to get some input. And I think that's important. First I was nervous and scared. It's like, oh, what if somebody takes my idea and runs with it? But that's fine. I think sharing your ideas and getting input, but also giving other people that information to use in the best way they can, because maybe they're in a different location and they can utilize this information in a different way. So this is very important. So right now we didn't have any open source developers staying here yet. We had a guy working on a good friend of mine working on virtual reality. He doesn't give that's kind of his scarce project, but everything else he does, he gives away open source. We had a few writers staying here, and a couple of days ago we had a few Lightning developers visiting from Chiang Mai, and they work on some really, really cool project. So they work on, wait, let me just, so I get the wording right. So they're building a low-cost platform for Lightning transactions, which is both hardware and software. So they use the existing Lightning software that's out there. But the hardware, that's all open source. You can change the components in it, add on, take off, whatever you need. Information is there on GitHub. And this is a payment platform for accepting Lightning payments for a very low cost. And we tried it out a few days ago. It worked amazing. They're still working on the hardware solutions, but this is it. They're sharing the hardware. The hardware is open source. They write down what they use. And I think this is a great opportunity of encouraging this kind of development. Because I think Lightning Network will be one of the big things for Bitcoin, which instant payments, small, very minimum fees, and this is what we need. This is one of the keys we need to reach mass adoption, and it needs to be simple. This is what I figured out. It's like Bitcoin hasn't been that user-friendly, especially for newbies into Bitcoin. When I came into Bitcoin, it took some time to figure out. I mean, it doesn't take a long time, but you need to be able to try. And if you can try with like sending one Satoshi, that's perfect. You don't need to send the whole dollar, and you don't need to be scared to try. So hopefully we will get these Lightning Network guys coming back and working on the project here. And I said to them, I'm happy to support them in any way I can. Actually wearing I got a t-shirt from them, Lightning Network Chiang Mai. You go guys, keep on working, keep on building, and share the information. Yeah, I think this is super important. Lightning Network is really going to change the way we transact in Bitcoin. And that's only one of the first second layer solutions we see on Bitcoin. And I'm sure we will see many, many more solutions many more second layer solutions for different things, addressing different problems. And I think we should really encourage that kind of development and also research do the R&D really where we could be. Because like I said before, this is just scratching the surface if we use Bitcoin as a protocol and a technology, which I think is probably the most important thing. in Bitcoin and looking where we could be in 5, 10, 15 years. Right now, we are kind of somewhere in between store of value, currency, and payment network, which is great. You know, it gives us, first time, it gives us financial freedom of transaction. We never had this before, so this is totally new. And right now, we're figuring out how to build solutions on top of that, and create businesses on top of open source. And I mean, we did it already with internet. Internet is open source. We built businesses that are based on internet. Why wouldn't we be able to do that on Bitcoin? I think that's ridiculous if we can't do that. And this is where we need to help people understand that Bitcoin is just like internet. It's just something we can build on top of. It shouldn't be controlled by anybody. It shouldn't be owned by anybody. It's there for everybody. It's there for everybody to use and everybody to build on. And I think sometimes this kind of gets forgotten in a lot of discussions sometimes. And this is where we want to bring Satoshi House in. You know, we want to be the place where people come to build for the future and build stuff, do the research that will change the future. This is where we want to be, and I hope we will find some great partners and some great developers, but also researchers to work with. And that's what we want to encourage and support.
Yes, exactly. And it is important to have an intuitive user interface for using the most liberating software. And that includes, of course, software that gives you the financial freedom and control over your own currency, but of course also then privacy and all the other good stuff. Bitcoin is there in a lot of ways, but still needs a lot of improvements, and there's a long way to go. And I agree with you that Lightning Network might be this exponential next increase in Bitcoin, this thing that really releases the next wave of innovation and usage and usability of this money. As a matter of fact, Lightning is damn usable. You scan a QR code, press send. That's it. Don't even have to type in the amount anymore because that's encoded in the QR code by standard. Yeah. And it's instant confirmation. It's quite easy to open a channel, and then you pretty much never have to close it, especially with autopilot hopefully coming soon. This will be moved to the back end anyway. And it's quite interesting to see where the usability aspect of Bitcoin is going to be improved with a better payment system for the base sound money, which is Bitcoin UTXOs. So that is quite an interesting model. And I'm really looking forward to see where this is going to. And one part especially is the point of sales system. So maybe could you go a bit more into the user experiences that the point of sale system that you are working on is designed?
So I'm not a developer or a coder. I love Bitcoin, and I try to support any interesting projects in the Bitcoin space. And like I say, I try to support the Lightning team from Chiang Mai with. They can come and stay here for free. They can work on the projects. And this is the way I can support them. And we had a great night here the other night. We had a few drinks. We had some food. And we were brainstorming. We were talking about potentials. But also they were showing their implementation of what they're building. And I think with what I saw, if I, as a merchant that have no experience of using Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency, if I would be offered this for a cheap cost, it would be a no-brainer to have it integrated into my POS system in my bar, for example, or in my guest house. And this is where it needs to be easy. It needs to be very easy to integrate, very easy to use, and for a low cost, because otherwise most merchants, they won't take the risk. And then for the merchants, there is also a cost of educating their staff how to use it. So it needs to be super, super user-friendly. There shouldn't be any options for making mistakes. I know user-friendliness and security normally don't go hand in hand, but in this case, I actually think it does. So I think they are doing a really good job. They're not really there yet. I'm not really sure when they're going to be ready, but you can go on their website, which is, let me get it up here, lncm.io, and check it out. They'll have some updates there. There's links to their Twitter. There's links to their GitHub. You can commit some ideas there. You can have a discussion there and see what they're working on and how you could contribute to it. And so this is the cool part. It's the hardware is open source, the software is open source. So you can change the whole modules in the hardware if you like to customize it for your own purposes. So yeah, I think Lightning Network really has the potential to change Bitcoin. It gave us scalability on a second layer solution. It also given us privacy in smaller transactions. And now we got liquidity for bigger transactions. And hopefully we will have some more privacy on Bitcoin main chain soon also. So I think all the cards are there. We just need to play them in the right way.
That's quite interesting. Yeah, I agree. And what I have been asking myself for a long time is, we have only a fraction of humanity using Bitcoin on chain, right? Maybe a couple million. And thus, not everyone has even on chain Bitcoin. And if we want to get everyone in Bitcoin, of course, like base layer blockchain Bitcoin doesn't scale, right? We know that. So we need to have a second layer. Lightning is a second layer that might actually be quite useful and quite scalable, and with some other nice features. However, for Lightning, at least at the current implementation, in order to open a payment channel, you have to make at least one on-chain transaction. And that is especially cumbersome for fast onboarding. So because opening the payment channel is actually several confirmations and a lot of back and forth communication and waiting time before you can finally use Bitcoin on a Lightning network. And just also from a scalability of point of view, if we want to get 7 billion people onto the Bitcoin Lightning network, with everyone having maybe two payment channels, right? Then that would already be a lot of on-chain transactions. So somehow we need to hack around that problem and find a way of introducing complete no-coiners to the Lightning network directly without even necessarily touching the underlying blockchain with a on-chain transaction themselves.
This is very true. And I'm actually not sure how the implementation of this is in these guys' box. But I'm sure they will make it super simple, so you don't have to do too much, and you don't have to go through the whole Bitcoin white paper, for example, to understand what it is and how to do it. I mean, most of us doesn't even understand how a credit card or debit card transaction work, and I don't really think you have to know every detail about how a Lightning transaction works, but it should be so easy. So you just have to probably put in a Satoshi to open up your channel. I mean, there's minimum that you need to put into the Lightning network right now. But Lightning Network is also new and it needs to get developed more. And the only way we can get it developed more is getting more developers into it and getting more ideas. But we also need testers and normal no-coiners that try it out and get their responses. How can we make it better? How can we make it easier? And the only way we can do this is getting some products, getting some solutions out there, and let people play around with it, try it. for example, a merchant who never handled Bitcoin before, let them get hold of a box and try it out. And these guys, they already have a few guys who, a few companies who are willing to do some testing on it. I myself said also, I'm happy to put one in our bar and one in our guest house to test it out. We'll have some people come and want to pay with Bitcoin. And that used to be a big hindrance for us. When we started accepting Bitcoin about 3 years ago, in the beginning, Bitcoin price was low, so it was no problem for people paying with Bitcoin. It was more, I'm not really sure how it works, and stuff like this. But then as Bitcoin price got higher and more people knew about it, people didn't want to pay with Bitcoin because they want to keep their Bitcoin. And the fees were high. So I think now, obviously, the fees have dropped. But with Lightning Network, you can pay for a beer, and you don't have to pay a lot in transaction fees. So this is another incentive that we need to get to. And also, like, you can do micropayments. So you can pay as you go for smaller transactions, whether it's avoiding advertising or Internet of Things. There's so many ways we could use Lightning Network. And I think this is what we need to encourage. And we need to, like I say, also do some more development and research in different ways that it actually can be used. Because both Bitcoin just had its 10-year celebration since the white paper came out. And Lightning Network has been worked on, I think like 2 or 3 years, maybe 4. So it's still very new solutions, which we still need to experiment a lot with and figure out how we can be used in the best ways. And I think we need to just get our hands on some Lightning stuff and play around with it. And both for people who have been into Bitcoin for a while but haven't used it, but also for no coiners, they could, instead of starting with Bitcoin, do a on-chain transaction, like you say. They could start with second layer transactions, just to have a little bit an idea of how it works, and just get comfortable with it. That's really what it is. Nobody was comfortable with iPhones when they came out, but they don't have a button. How should I ring the number? And I think it's kind of similar with Bitcoin and Lightning. We just got to familiarize ourselves with it and get comfortable of using it.
Oh yes, absolutely. And thing is, we're so early. You didn't even know how early we are. This entire software is still pretty much not even released, right? It's still only like developers testing it. It's not much of a public use. Yes, you can do on-chain don't mean on-chain, but mainnet transactions, right, with real Bitcoin. And yes, they actually do work. And yes, I don't think any Bitcoin have been lost yet. At least not many, and not by protocol error. So it is kind of working. But still, a lot of improvements need to come. And with stuff like the L2 protocol, the update to the Lightning protocol, a lot of the stuff will be made much easier, like channel factories, which are a huge scaling option of opening these payment channels, and all the other fancy stuff coming. Lots of cool tech. I would just suggest to jump in the chat really quick. And Mickey O asked the question: when will the Lightning Network be finished and be able to process large transactions at over 10,000 transactions per second? Well, and that's the thing with open source software in general. It's never finished, right? People will always have to improve it and to fix bugs, because there has never been the perfect spoken word, just as there will never be the perfect written piece of software, right? And it will always have flaws and always have unexpected bugs and failures and improvements. And so good software is lively. It morphs and moves throughout time. And so will a Lightning Network. It'll never be finished, just as Bitcoin will never be finished. And there will always be new contributions and new improvements, maybe some bad additions as well. And maybe some other technology will make Lightning Network completely obsolete. We don't know. Same might happen for Bitcoin. But the thing is that the community is important to surround this changing software and make sure that it is lively and doesn't wither away and die in the ether of forgetfulness. And especially for larger transactions, stuff like atomic multi-path routings are really cool, which basically allow the possibility of sending a large amount of Bitcoin uh, atomically, atomically throughout several payment channels. So 10 Bitcoin do not get transferred throughout one route in the network, in 10 Bitcoin as a whole, but rather in 10 rounds or 10 routes of each one Bitcoin. And it happens in a way that is atomic. So either the entire payment of all 10 times one Bitcoin go through, or Alice retains all 10 Bitcoin. So there's no state where Bob receives 8 Bitcoin and Alice retains 2. It either goes through everything or the payment does not go through at all. So stuff like this, I think, is already implemented or possible. However, again, L2, a lot of improvements coming there. So still early tech, and quite curious where this will go.
Exactly, and you got to be able to, before you do big transactions, you want to try it out on small transactions. You don't want to be responsible of people losing a lot because you want to rush the software too fast. So I think this is just responsible development where you start small, you allow small transactions, you test it out, you figure out what's working and what's not working and why it's not working. And then you keep on developing on that. I think it would be really irresponsible to let out the software too fast, where people can risk to make big mistakes. And also, as an open source project, we all have the possibility to go in and review the code for bugs, or go in and contribute to the code. And even if you don't contribute to the code, you could contribute to ideas, maybe ideas of different ways of implementation. So there's many ways we can contribute to open source project like Lightning Network. And I think for a lot of Lightning developers, it's also important to have feedback from people who probably don't have that much experience with Bitcoin or Lightning Network, because their aim is to make it accessible for everybody. So any kind of feedback, I think, would be really appreciated from the whole network and the whole community. And like I say, everybody's welcome in there and work on development. And the code is there. There's so many different versions of Lightning. There's many different people working on it. And just join the revolution and work on Bitcoin and work on Lightning and work on open source. Because this is where the future lies. It's being part of the open source community, and that today might be Lightning and Bitcoin. Tomorrow that might be something else. But like Max says, the software is never really finished. Look at, for example, we had Windows around for long enough now. That's never finished. There always comes new updates. Same with Linux. Linux started out as a command line tool, and now you've got a graphical user interface. So, and this is thanks to people supporting the community and adding to the community. And when it's open source, you can't really expect that everybody else is doing the work. If there's something missing, you got to speak up and say, I'm looking for this. I'm not a coder, but would it be possible? How could we do this? So, be vocal, talk to the community, say what you're missing, or help contributing.
Exactly, right? Contribute. Make sure that that the software is being moved forward, and make sure that it is lively. And as I said, with open source software, you have full control and therefore responsibility. If you're using open source software, it is your responsibility to take care of this tool in whatever capacity that you can. Of course, if you're not a developer, you're not going to do any major bug fixes. But if you have these skills, well, at least look at them. If you're good at marketing, then talk about the project and make sure that the users agree. If you can answer some questions, go out there and answer the questions and just be active and supportive in the community. And that's a big part of why I am doing these videos, is because I like the software and I use it. And it is my responsibility to talk about, for example, the Wasabi wallet, because I like it a lot and I want it to grow and be better and be more used, increasing the anonymity set. We also have a question in the chat by, where is it? Ventian MDTOW. And he is wondering if there is a two-way or a bidirectional payment channel or bidirectional version of the Lightning Network on mobile. And if you want to have a unidirectional payment channel, that means that you can only send Bitcoin from your device. I can suggest the Eclair wallet, both for testnet and mainnet. But the problem here is that if you only send the transaction, of course, you cannot receive it. That's a security feature, because if you're only sending Bitcoin, it doesn't make sense to publish a old state for a malicious attacker. So you don't have to check the blockchain if a malicious closing of the payment channel has or is happening. And on the other hand, if you're using a bidirectional Lightning Network app, like, for example, the Bitcoin Lightning wallet by the developer Anton Kumai-Gorodowski, has a blue circle with a lightning flash on white. That is a bidirectional payment channel app. So when opening a payment channel here, you can both send the Lightning payment, but you can also receive the Lightning from someone else. Or at least back from this payment channel, and therefore from the entire Lightning. However, again, early software, pretty much not even released. Don't even consider it as a finished product. And especially these mobile wallets are probably insecure as hell. And do not put a lot of money on there. Probably don't put any money on there. Maybe test it, testnets, right? That's probably all that you should be doing right now with this software. And don't be reckless, but of course everyone is.
Yeah, this is right. It's still a very new software, so it's an experimental stage, or I would say a test phase. Same like if you have a brand new software, you'll probably have some bugs with it. And this is same with Lightning. You should be really careful with when you just put little bit amount of money on it, nothing more than you can afford to lose. So if that is $1, $2, that's totally up to you. But like Max said, you can also use the testnet. You can familiarize yourself with it. And that's really, you don't have to put any money on it to play around with it. Just figure out, put some testnet Lightning on it and play around with it. Send it to you, have a wallet on your computer, have a wallet on your phone, send it around, and figure out how it works. And then you don't have to be scared of losing anything either. And when you get some more experience, and when you actually want to use Lightning Network to pay for something, you can fill up your channel with a little bit of money. And like the bidirectional payment channels, that's great. We need more stuff like this coming out. It needs to be easy to use, and opening and closing channels, or especially opening channels, that should be, I believe, a feature that is in the back end, but also should be able to be enabled in the front end for advanced users. But I don't think necessarily that should be the standard feature that you should have to open a channel yourself. And I think, don't be shy. The software is there, code is there. Have a look at it, download it, play with it, get comfortable with it. Same like we got comfortable with smartphones and internet and everything like this. I mean, I remember my old Nokia that had the flashlight and the Snake game on, and upgrading from that to to a smartphone, that was something, wow, this is amazing, but how does it work? You just go one button. So, it'll take some time to figure out, and it's new. So I think like I said before, any feedback you can give to the Lightning community is super important, because it will make for them easier to also understand how they can make it easier, how they can make it better and simpler to use. Because that's the whole goal with this. We want it to be simple to use for everybody. You shouldn't have to be, an engineer to figure out how to use a Lightning wallet or Bitcoin. It should be intuitive, so when you see it, you know exactly how to use it.
Exactly, absolutely. And I especially want to thank Ventian again in the chat, who's, of course, first of all, active in the chat and asking questions and interacting with our community, which is amazing. So thank you for that. But thank you especially for giving us the $5 YouTube donation super chat thingy. So we now have some more fiat coins, which we can transfer to Bitcoin. Amazing, thank you so much. And he says that he doesn't mind being reckless. And especially with $100 or less. And well, I agree, absolutely. We can be reckless, and maybe we should even be reckless to some extent. I mean, I personally have, I have made my first Lightning payment on testnet in November last year, and that was completely okay, right? Testnet money, fake money. But I also did it in December on mainnet. And that really was reckless. But as you said, it wasn't even $100; it was $5. So it was a payment channel of a couple thousand satoshis, not much, because I knew this is going to be early stuff, and it will not be perfect, and there will be bugs. And again, I didn't lose anything, but I once had to close a payment channel that I didn't want to close. So there are bugs that are happening in the software, and you have to be careful. But as Kris said perfectly, is that the feedback is important, and making sure that the software is actually being used and active and lively and supporting it is really important. So if you want to test it out, open a payment channel for $20 worth and go to the Blockstream store and get some stickers, or go to Torguard and get a VPN, or go to Satoshi's place and buy a couple pixels. There are cool things that you can do with Lightning today already, and that is something that Mickey O asked in the chat as well. He says he doesn't mean that Lightning will be finished. He means when would it be usable and reliable, so that the transactions are not rolled back. From the sound of it, it looks like Lightning Network will take another 1 or 2 years. And well, again, the Lightning Network needs to develop, and in 1 to 2 years, it will be massively improved. And of course, being at this stage in 1 or 2 years is going to be quite interesting to see how far it can improve. But honestly, I do think Lightning is pretty usable at this moment. We have several mobile apps, and if you have a direct payment channel, there will never be an issue with the routing. But routing is still a problem. So it happens often that you do not find an adequate route in the network. Why? Mainly because the network is small at this point, and because the pathfinding is really difficult, especially in a changing state network like the Lightning Network. So you will see that some of the routing attempts will fail, and that after 4 or 5 failed routes, you will actually get an error message with a payment not sent. But realize that this is atomic. So either the payment goes through or it doesn't. And if this route fails, you didn't do the payment. So no Bitcoin were lost or stolen. They just were never sent, right? Because you couldn't find a path to send it to. So when will it be usable? It kind of is. I think it will get a lot better in the future. And stuff like these failed routing attempts, first of all, don't do much, right? Just try a different route, maybe open another payment channel. And it will get better with time. So what are your thoughts on the usability of Lightning Network right now, and when will it be ready for true usage?
I think Lightning Network, you can use it today. You're just gonna be careful. Don't put more than you can lose on it if you make any mistakes. But I think, like you say, probably somewhere about 2 years, I think we will see bigger implementation of Lightning. We'll see better apps, we'll see better wallets, we will see better options for both physical merchants and online merchants to accept Lightning Network payments. So I see Nicolas Dorier on BTC Pay Server. I think he also integrated Lightning Network on BTC Pay Server. So there's a lot of different people working on different implementations of Lightning. So there's not only one small group of people working on one solution. And this is how we can make the development go faster, that we have more people working on it, but we also have more people giving feedback. And I agree with Max there. It'll probably take about 1 to 2 years. I would say more like 2 years before we have a very good, stable version where it's very simple, very user-friendly, and very secure. And remember, you'll also keep your privacy with the Lightning Network. So it will come, but it's a new software, so we got to give it some time. And that's also why the guys from L&D went out and said, don't put too much money on it, because it's still in testing stages, in beta stages, with the mainnet open, of course. And we need the mainnet open to be able to try real-world functionality. If it's just kind of plastic money, nobody really cares. And so I think this is going to be an interesting learning curve for the whole development and implementation of the software. But yeah, I think it's really exciting. There's so much happening in Bitcoin and Lightning right now. So we just have to keep on working on it and encourage the usage and the development on it.
Oh yes, absolutely, and it will evolve with time. We're not even getting started. Bitcoin white paper only 10 years. The source code is not even been running for that long. So we still have the true Bitcoin birthday happening on January 3rd, 2019, and it's going to advance and improve, as pretty much everything does in this permissionless innovation open source ecosystem that is Bitcoin. So quite interesting. Where do you see the main use cases for Lightning? Because it is a radically new technology, makes a lot of stuff possible, and there are already a lot of cool apps. For example, Satoshi's Place, pay per pixel. Right? That sounds insane, but you literally pay per pixel. Or there are cool games coming to Lightning Network where a user payment actually triggers an event in-game. A couple Lightning games will come on the World Crypto Network soon. Or is it streaming payments, right? Having all these small recurring payments for every second of video that you watch. Or is it a paper API call, right? Is it this only digital payment for digital information that is being released? Where do you see the main use cases for the Lightning Network in the far future?
So I think you're right. It can be used for all of that, but also let's say different examples. So today, if you look on, for example, light bulbs, they're not made to last, or LED lights. They're not really made to last. They're made to be LEDs break after 25, 30,000 hours, which is long time. But you could also, for example, you encourage the manufacturer to make a high quality product that you will only pay when you use. So you only pay when you turn on your light bulb. And that would encourage the manufacturer to make a high quality product that will never break. So there's so many ways we can use Lightning in the future. And I think we will come into more like Internet of Things, have very, very small payments, maybe even nano payments, where we actually divide Satoshis into smaller pieces. And we can pay as we go for whatever we use, whether that is a light bulb, a fridge, a car. So I think we will see a couple of things that will drive the mass adoption, and it's going to be one of those things which has been staring us in the face, but nobody really thought about it. And that's what's going to make the big change.
Yeah, and we don't even know yet what the cool things are that can be made with Lightning, because we haven't really thought about it too much. And what can you use magic internet money for? Well, now we're going to find out. Because there are a lot of ideas out there and a lot of hype and a lot of buzzwords. But what is actually a usable product that is valuable, that people will use because it makes their life less uneasy, right? It removes uneasiness. If Lightning can be that, a payment system that removes the uneasiness of slow and friction payments, and have the sound money Bitcoin as a backing, that is a nice combination. Being able to transmit a fraction of a Satoshi. Actually, the base denomination in a Lightning network is milli-Satoshis. So 1,000th of one Satoshi. That is how the Lightning network calculates it. So there are already sub-Satoshi payments that in a direct payment channel, you can transfer a sub-Satoshi for 0.0 fees instantly, as soon as you sign the contract, or well, the transaction. So the possibilities of this are going to be unknown at this point. Just as in 1990, you maybe thought about something like Wikipedia happening, right? You maybe thought about something like YouTube happening. But did you really anticipate Airbnb and Uber? And these are second and third and fifth wave effects and ideas that are actually being manifested. And these ideas still need to be born and created. And then, of course, shared and applied. So it's quite interesting to see where this space is going, and watching something like Lightning Hack Day, which a great job, Full Lightning, and thanks for streaming it, Voltaro. Amazing stuff, and so much innovation happening here. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we can see also more internet services that can use Lightning payments, like you say, like streaming from Netflix. That could be based on Lightning. Avoiding pop-ups and directed advertising. You could pay with Lightning to avoid that instead of getting an ad blocker, for example. So there's so many ways we can already use it today, but we need more development on it, and we need to get better implementation of it. And many of the smaller altcoins and tokens that claim they do micropayments, they probably could use Lightning Network instead and still have the transactions confirmed on the Bitcoin base layer. And I think that would be something really cool. And I think this is what we will really see. We had a ICO bubble, and now we will see more and more second, third, fourth, fifth layer solution that are tied to the Bitcoin network or the Bitcoin base layer. And this is something really interesting, because that kind of takes away a lot of the scams that we've seen over the past year. And I really hope that would actually take away a lot of the scams, because you can't really pump and dump on Bitcoin. And that's a big factor. I think, yeah, Bitcoin is the one. I'm sure there's other currencies that have some use cases for now, but in the long run, I think Bitcoin will be the only one that actually really matters, because no other coin is as decentralized as Bitcoin. And this is one of Bitcoin's really true powers. Not having an office, not having a front figure or a creator that is still public and backing it, that even if they did a great job, that is still a point of failure. And I think that was one of the best things Satoshi did, was actually stepping away from Bitcoin. And he created it, he helped to bring it to life, and then he did the right thing of, it got its own life, it got the community behind it, and now it's the community, which is all of us. You have a Bitcoin, you have half a Bitcoin, you have couple of Satoshis, you're part of Bitcoin. And, you can't stop that. The toothpaste is out of the tube and we can't get it back in again. That's the Bitcoin tech. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what more of other options of second and third layer solutions we will get. But remember, we just scratched on the second layer solution right now. So it's going to take some time before that is finished or never finished, but it's going to be ready to roll out in a bigger way. And then we need to start to work on the other layers and see what we can do with that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's quite interesting now after having the base layer network effect of Bitcoin itself, right, and of onboarding through the sound money Bitcoin. Uh, Now we have the secondary network effect of second layer solutions, right? And the same applies, the same network applies to the Lightning network, is that it has to be used by several people. A lot of people have to have open payment channels and actively been routing payments throughout the network. If no one is using it, it doesn't have any value because there are not economic actors that you can engage in voluntary exchange. So the Lightning Network needs to acquire this entire new network effect. However, it is exponentializing the already existing network of Bitcoin, right? It is utilizing and leveraging the already existing user base of Bitcoin and giving these users the access to a more superior payment mechanisms with the same currency. However, of course, people need to opt into this payment system, which is the Lightning Network, which is quite interesting. And especially with the programmability of Bitcoin and the user interface being the wallet, I do think that a lot of this can be pushed to the backend. And so that a normal wallet that is being downloaded just simply has Lightning Network integrated. And it is seamless inside the transaction, the user interface. And thus it decreases the barrier to entry for Bitcoin users to use Lightning Network. And if that barrier to entry is minimal, is small, then the entire network of Bitcoin can swoosh into this network of Lightning and make sure that it is just as valuable and exponentially more so than the Bitcoin base layer.
Yeah, I think it's some really interesting stuff, and we just need to be a bit patient, and it will come. There's a lot of smart people working and trying to make it better. And also we need to kind of remember why we're doing this. So, people say we could use PayPal and we can use our credit cards. Yeah, for sure. But then what we do again is give away control. And this is what it's all about. It's permissionless payment that can't be censored and gives you a grade of privacy. And this is really important whether it comes to Bitcoin or Lightning Network. We don't want to use somebody that can censor your transactions. For example, look like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, PayPal started stopping transactions for WikiLeaks. I think that without going to a court and without due process, I think that kind of opened up the eyes for many people that we need something different. And I think Bitcoin actually got a good upswing there of people understanding that we need something that cannot be controlled and shouldn't be controlled. And people say it's like Bitcoin is for criminals and stuff like this. And criminals use dollars, they use euros, they use anything really. And so of course they will use Bitcoin also. But majority of people using Bitcoin, they're not criminals, they're not gangsters. So, we can't censor everybody because a few bad apples. So we need to keep developing this and educating that money should not be controlled. I think this is really important.
Exactly. It's the financial self-sovereignty. It's the aspect that you run a Bitcoin full node. It's the aspect that you control your private keys. And nobody represents you, but you present yourself as a peer on the network. And this is why Bitcoin is so different and so special, because it places ultimate power at the edges, at the consumer, at the user, at the individual. And there is no collectivism in Bitcoin in that sense that you rely on someone else and being mushed together. No, you are a self-sovereign individual. And if you use Bitcoin, you're using a self-sovereign financial system. And having ultimate control is important to retain this on the second layer and third layer and whatever else we're going to build. This philosophy of liberty is inherent in Bitcoin, and that is its major success. That's why Bitcoin is still around 10 years after. It is the fundamental principle of liberty that makes Bitcoin such a useful and such a novel money. Of course, the sound money attribute is one aspect of this liberty. And therefore, also a second and third layer has to retain the same 21 million inflation consensus that makes Bitcoin so sound in its economic policy. And here is maybe where some misconceptualizing that Lightning might create inflation. And no, it doesn't, because every Lightning transaction is shifting the state of a multi-signature wallet on chain. So this multi-signature wallet has 10 Bitcoin locked in. The 10 Bitcoin UTXO that is accumulated with a lot of proof of work and that is not double spent. And shifting the ownership and control over these 10 Bitcoin is what Lightning Network actually changes. It is a shifting and in the control of an unchanging amount of base layer currency. Thus, the Lightning Network is a layer and not a reserve, which, by the way, I don't think you can say for sidechains yet. So different economic beasts here. So Kris, just where do you think is the importance of the sound money aspect of the Lightning Network?
I think in general, like both for Bitcoin and Lightning Network, sound money aspect is really important. And like you mentioned earlier, we have now a way of having control over our financial transactions. And this is the first time we have this. We never had it before. But also with this control comes, when we have full control, we also have 100% responsibility of keeping our keys and not losing our keys, storing our keys in the right way, backing up the keys. And I think this will probably be a challenge for the next years to come to make an easy enough and secure enough way for people to store their keys. So I think we will see, as we already seen the last couple of months, we'll see more companies coming up with custodial solutions, which I'm kind of split to. I think, yeah, it might be okay to use custodial solutions when you first get into Bitcoin. But then when you actually understand and learn more about it, and you understand why it's so important to keep your own keys, because if you don't have your keys, you don't own your Bitcoin. So I think this is one thing where we need to work really hard on is private key management. And I think this is something I want to also like encourage and development in, and some easy solutions, but also secure solutions. I think we have more use and knowledge about multi-sig wallets. I think the 2 out of 3 multi-sig keys are pretty interesting stuff that could be used for a lot of things, like, for example, inheritance or other options. So there's some pretty interesting stuff going on there. But with full control come also full responsibility, which we sometimes tend to forget ourselves as well. I mean, there's no Mr. Bitcoin you can call and say, I lost my card, can I have a new one, please? It doesn't really work like that. If you lost it, you lost it. So that's also why don't put too much money in on Lightning right now that you can't lose, that you can't afford to lose. Well, if you can afford to lose $100, that's up to you. If you can afford to lose $5, that's up to you. That's fine. You know, it doesn't matter really how much money is going transacted in the Lightning Network at this stage when we're trying it out still and experimenting with it. So yeah, just keep on experimenting and be careful with your keys. And remember, you are in control. And this is the first time we actually had control, which I think is pretty awesome.
Exactly. And in a sense, right, Bitcoin is as self-sufficient as gold, right? If you control and own the gold coin, well, nobody else owns it and nobody else controls it. It's only you. And if you lose it, well, it's gone. But the cool thing with Bitcoin is that it is software. And if you would like to change part of the consensus algorithm, if you like to change and fork the software and make it your own, you can do it. You can change these rules. You can adapt new consensus software and try to use it in this new form and see if other people agree with your rule change. You cannot force others to accept your new rule set. They have to voluntarily download and run the software, but at least you can. And this is where we see these plethora of digital coins rising the last couple of years, as people realize the power that they now have of creating their own currency. It just happens that not every currency is equal, and there are some currencies that are sound, and a bunch of shitcoins. And having Bitcoin as a sound currency is quite an important aspect.
Yeah, I think we've seen this through history that people been trying to print their own money through time and through all monetary history. So you know, people try to make fake dollar bills, fake euro bills, and if a person or a bad person get a chance to print their own money, they will probably take that chance because it could be very easy money for them. But that doesn't mean it's good money or sound money in any way. And they could be, I think they can only be one really sound money. And I think today this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin will also change and develop and evolve. In which ways, we really don't have that much idea yet. But Bitcoin won't be static. Bitcoin is dynamic and it will evolve, it will develop. But I doubt the hard cap of 21 million will change. I doubt that the mining algorithm will change because you need the whole network consensus for that. And I don't think people, if somebody tries to change it, they won't receive that consensus. And then people can make a fork and see. I mean, there's many forks of Bitcoin already, and most of them have been unsuccessful. And I think we'll get another one coming up in a few days, in a week or so, with Bitcoin Cash and Satoshi's vision as well. We'll see how that goes. Get your popcorn out.
Well, yeah, and clearly the Satoshi's vision states that one Bitcoin equals one Bcash. Oh, wait. No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I think they got it wrong there. I don't think they figured it out really. One Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and Bitcoin will always be Bitcoin. Anything else that is forked of Bitcoin, it's an attempt to maybe be Bitcoin, but it will not be unless it has the longest chain and most hashing power, but most important of all, the whole network consensus of every user, every participant in the network. So, I mean, you and I, we could go out and create 2 new Bitcoins today. That doesn't mean it's going to take over the world. And I think if I did it, it will be a very poor coin, and I would have a hard time selling it because I wouldn't believe in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the shelling point of money. It's not just the software, it's not just the metal. It's actually the people, the peers on the network that make a currency, a money, a medium of exchange. That is a economic transaction inherently. Thus, there always has to be a Alice and a Bob, a network of peers. And even though you could do a complete copy of Bitcoin, same code, same consensus rules, it still would not be Bitcoin. Why? Because they're not the same peers on the network. That's why, number one, using this currency actually in your economy is important. And of course, running the Bitcoin Core implementation and running the consensus rules, enforcing and verifying the consensus yourself. Again, no representatives, just presenters. And the Bitcoin peers are self-sovereign, and they all are. Each individual node is a sovereign and free node. However, they all collaboratively come together under the same and unchanging rules. The Nakamoto consensus has never been broken. If you run Bitcoin version 0.1 that Satoshi Nakamoto released, it would never sync up because of lacking efficiencies, but it would sync up to the current block height because consensus rules have never been broken in Bitcoin. And
this is very true. And also important aspect of Bitcoin is the network effect. There's so many people that run their full nodes. Bitcoin have so much hashing power today. So, just making a fork, you need to have not only the hashing power, but the whole network effect of people who running a Bitcoin Core wallet. They need to swap to another full node wallet. And I doubt that's going to happen. I think Bitcoin is the one that, that's a cryptocurrency that stands out today and has some honest valuations. I think a lot of them, some of them try, but they're missing out on some very critical point, which is decentralization. And that's why I think I wouldn't trust a guy that comes up and says to me, I made this new coin, let's put all our money into this and your pension as well. But then I might as well trust the bank. And the prof both steal my money in the end anyway. So I would prefer where somebody don't have control. And this is what makes so important. It doesn't matter who Satoshi Nakamoto was. What matters is the math works. Nobody can control it. It's yours. And it's yours for the first time for real. And nobody can take it away. That is the difference. While you have some company, some created some coin, that company can be shut down. There can be an exit scam where somebody run off with the money. There's so many ways people could steal your money or you could lose your money. And in Bitcoin, you can't. The only way you can lose your money is if you lose your keys.
Precisely. And when you have access to this information, to this non-scarce information, which is the Bitcoin private key, you have access to the scarce Bitcoin token, which is quite interesting. Out of this network of non-scarce information arises the scarcity enforced by individual consensus, which is fascinating in this decentralized fashion. And we have Mickey O asking in the chat if what we think of these new large third-party storage firms like the Winklevoss patent that will store your private keys for ETFs and banks. Can these third-party firms be trusted with storing your private keys? Well, that's a nuanced question, right? Self-sovereignty is not for everyone. There are cowards in this world that do not want to be sovereign individuals, and they like to be protected. And there is inherently not too much wrong with that. I wouldn't agree with their point of view, but well, it's their opinion. They're allowed to have it. And if they do not want to take care of themselves, well, then someone else can do it for them. I might argue on the economics of and say that a self-sovereign individual with collaboration of other self-sovereign individuals is much more prosperous than someone that is being protected, just as the game theory and incentives work out as well. But inherently, there's nothing wrong with having a custodial service. But the importance is that those sovereign individuals that want to reclaim their sovereignty over their finances, over their money, that these individuals have the tools and the possibilities of doing so. So if we have the option of a Libra sovereignty Bitcoin way, which is holding your own keys, then I personally will prefer that. But I cannot make someone else use the system if he doesn't want to. So if you want to use the granny state custodial services, do it, but do not force me to do so.
Exactly. Using the custodial services are voluntary. And I would say, same as we see many people use banks today, I guess this is also easy to pay with credit cards and your phone apps and stuff like this. But many people would probably not store their own keys because they are afraid of themselves. So I believe there'll be some custodial solutions that will get big over the next few years. And I think it doesn't have to be a bad thing depending on how it's done. But remember, most custodial solutions have been hacked, will be hacked, or will get stolen. There is, for example, a way where you could do a multi-sig with your custodian. So they can never, ever move the wallet without your key. And there is probably some interesting solutions coming up in there. But I would recommend be your own boss, hold your own keys. If you're not sure how to do, there is a lot of information out there that will help you how to secure your keys and keep them safe. And you can always get a bank deposit box, and it's going to be very hard for somebody else to access them if you don't want to store them at home. Maybe you scared your house burned down, or there's many things that could happen. So store your keys. If it's a lot of money, get a bank deposit box, put them in there, and a few other backup places. I'm not an expert in how to store your keys, but there is many solutions out there, and I think you should always hold your own keys. But I also believe that because so many people are scared, there's going to be a big influx of custodial services for both private people and for bigger company holders or corporate holders or institutional services. They like to have lawyers fighting with each other when something goes wrong. So that seems the easier way to be actually responsible for your own keys.
Exactly, and there are tools that can help you. A hardware wallet like this open source cold card is an amazing tool to generate and to safeguard and store private keys. There is a software like the Wasabi wallet that lets you, upon other amazing features, encrypt the backups easily. So your backup of the mnemonic seed, the 12, 18, or 24 words, are actually themselves encrypted with a unique password that you come up with. So it has even the convenience of encrypting your backups, which is something that you should always do. And then further, I might say diversify. Don't diversify into shitcoins, that doesn't make sense, but diversify your ways of storing your sound money. And so if you have different UTXOs, it might make sense to keep some of these UTXOs stored on a different hierarchical deterministic wallet. So simply create 5 different wallets that all have 5 different mnemonic seeds that you encrypt. And then store these 5 different wallets in different places. And make sure that you have, wherever you might need it, some of this money securely stored away. And even if one wallet gets compromised, if you take good care of it, it's going to be quite secure. The possibility of several of these UTXOs and wallets being compromised at the same time gets decreased quite drastically. And also realize that what the current system is, what is the status quo? You don't control any of your money. It is being censored every single day. And it can be censored at the click of a mouse. And so having a private key and elliptical curve digital signatures protecting you is already a huge improvement. And then taking care of your backups, encrypting these as well, and diversifying into several different UTXOs is several orders of magnitude better than anything else that we have in the current incumbent system.
Exactly. Don't keep all your eggs in the same bag. You know, that's what the whole Bitcoin network is about. So, you know, you make that's why decentralization is so good, because you have so many nodes running all over the place. So to actually attack the whole network, it would be impossible. And that comes down to same with if you store your assets in different wallets, in different locations, you minimize the risk of them getting compromised. And I think this is very good advice. You got to be really safe, really secure, and don't keep all the eggs in the same bag. Split up. If you got 1,000 Bitcoin, do 10 wallets with 100 in each, and store the keys in different places. Always have encryption, and make sure you back up your encryption. I just downloaded Wasabi Wallet yesterday. Had it installed. I've been following Nopara for quite a long time on both Twitter, and I was glad to see when he started guesting your show and also the Block Digest show. That's one of my favorite shows. And I've been excited for it to come out. Just didn't have time to play around with it before we got on the call. So yeah, I'm excited to start playing around with it a bit more, because privacy and security is super important in this. And I especially love that you can do the coin join through the Wasabi wallet. This is exactly the stuff we need. I think Adam is a guy who has some very valid, he's seen some very valid concerns already a few years back and figured out a way of solving those problems.
Absolutely. Adam is one of the heroes of Bitcoin, and the Wasabi wallet is one of the most advanced tools and weapons of self-defense that we currently possess in Bitcoin. If you want to reclaim your privacy, there is probably no better way of doing it other with the Wasabi wallet at this point of time. Hopefully, a lot of more improvements will come. But with cryptographically ensured privacy, with Chaumian coin joins, with a anonymity set of currently 49. And I hear that right at this moment, there are 3 Wasabi coin join rounds of each an anonymity set of 49 with 0.1 Bitcoin denomination that are currently in the memory pool. So right now, there are 15 new Bitcoins that are being washed clean of their chain of history in the chain of digital signatures. That is amazing, right? This is incredible software that is actively being used at this point in time, and that actually works. Yes, it just got out of alpha into beta. Version 1.0 was released October 31st. Happy Bitcoin 10th year Bitcoin white paper anniversary. But this is still early tech, but it works. And it is rather secure. It's not perfect, but pretty damn good. And seeing more people using this wallet is amazing. And especially, again, huge thank you to Adam, who's dedicated a lot of his time and effort and attention and dedication to making Bitcoin private again, which is absolutely a worthy goal fighting for.
Yeah, I'm super impressed with Adam's work on the Wasabi wallet. I think it used to be called Hidden Wallet before when he started working on it. And when I found it first, I couldn't wait to get it out. So I'm super excited to have it downloaded, and I'll probably play around with it most of the day tomorrow and do some transactions and figure out how it works. But it seems pretty straightforward. And I know privacy is is his main goal with this, and I'm really looking forward to playing around with it. And I think we will have more security layers come into Bitcoin. Hopefully, we'll see some on the actual mainnet, maybe some Schnorr signatures coming soon, or in a couple of years or so. And I think that's also really important. And that would make all these chain analysis companies out there obsolete. And the more people start using Wasabi Wallet today can already change that. So we don't have to actually wait for the on-chain privacy. We can already make our own privacy today. And I think anybody who have some Bitcoin, you should download the Wasabi Wallet out. Don't have to put any money on it to start with, but familiarize yourself with the software, put a few dollars on it, try to use it, and give some feedback to Adam. I'm sure he's got a lot of issues to deal with already. So, but that's how we make software better. And like we said earlier, software is never finished. Software is dynamic. It'll change as the needs changes, and we will keep on working on it as long as we need. And when we are tired, somebody else will pick up. That's the beauty of open source. You don't have to sell it to somebody. You'll have passionate people who will contribute and have the passion for the project and join in. And this is the really cool part. And this is how, you build a community, you build a network, you make new friends, you share ideas. Maybe you come up with some own business solutions with some friends. And, this is where the future lies. Open source all the way, buddy. There's no stopping us now.
Absolutely. Open source everything. That's the name of the game. And with this dedication, and as many amazing entrepreneurs like, upon others, Adam, and of course also you, Kris, I do see a lot of hope for the ethos of Liberty and for new and amazing projects to be happening. We talked previously just a teeny tiny bit about multi-sigs and what's possible with this as one aspect. And on tomorrow, again, the next show of Open Source Everything, this time with Roman Snitko from Hodl, the peer-to-peer but not so decentralized exchange that is amazing, super user-friendly. And previously, they've worked with 2 out of 2 multi-signatures. And since a couple days or weeks or blocks, they have released their 2 out of 3 multi-signature, which gives a lot of new possibilities. And also peer-to-peer futures with smart contracts and time locks. So we're going to talk a lot with Roman about all this stuff and how Bitcoin as a sound money and programmable sound money is used in financial institutions that are truly liberating, as Hodl is. So really looking forward to this conversation. And if you like all these chats here, consider a like, consider the subscribe, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think Hodl, they're doing some really cool stuff, and I think I watched the show when I think you were talking with Roman about the 2 out of 3 multisig a couple of weeks ago when they started talking about it, and this was they actually listened to their users, and this is something really interesting. I think this should be the way, or this could be a way that custodial solutions could also be used.
Exactly. And people always ask, oh, smart contracts, that's the next big thing. I agree. But spoiler, it's not going to be CryptoKitties. It's going to probably be multi-sig. Multi-sig is huge. Having cryptographic proven shared usage and control over a base layer sound money currency is massive. That has never happened in e-money before. And having this at the Bitcoin base layer working, such that unlike other multi-sigs parity Ethereum, it actually works and is secure and cryptographically proven, and so far pretty secure. So having this integrated in the Bitcoin base layer is a killer app. Multi-sig is a killer app.
Yeah, I think so too. I think multi-sig, I think, has been available for Bitcoin since the beginning, if I'm not wrong. Smart contracts has always been, you could always do smart contracts on Bitcoin, but very simple smart contracts like multi-sig. I think SegWit made it so we could use a little bit more advanced contracts. But yeah, this is the way forward. And especially the cool thing with HODL HODL is that they listen to the users. And so what I get is the buyer has a key, the seller has a key, and HODL HODL does the arbitrage or the mediation if there is any. And I think that if there is no transaction done, the multi-sig will release the funds back to the parties after 30 days or something like this. So you actually, if both sides try to pay, have the kind of a Mexican standoff, everybody gets the money back and nobody lost anything. And that's kind of the right way of doing it.
Oh yeah, exactly. So we're looking forward to that conversation and diving a bit more deeper down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and Liberty, and see how programmable sound money might play out in the future, and how it is already playing out today by an amazing team of entrepreneurs getting it done and actually manifesting change and applying their ideas of open source freedom and actually making it happen. So as always, it's a pleasure talking to all these amazing entrepreneurs. And you, Kris, are absolutely included because we had a amazing conversation, and I'm always in awe about the quality of character and depth of knowledge and wisdom of these people I get to talk to here on the show, Open Source Everything, where, well, the name is Program. So Kris, again, thank you so much for what you're doing in Bitcoin. And I really appreciate your work at Satoshi House, which has like something like this, a co-working space dedicated for open source projects, and especially Bitcoin. It has been in the back of my mind for a long time, and especially working in restaurants and bars for a long time in my youth. Many blocks ago.
Well, great minds think alike. So I just want to take an opportunity to say, it's like, if you guys want to get in touch with us, and of course, Max, thank you for inviting me to the show. This was an amazing chat. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully we can get on another call in the future, and we'll see where we are and what's going on. I'd like to talk more also about like Bitcoin technical side and as a technology where my passion lies. But if anybody wants to get in contact with me, I'm on satoshihouse.org. I'm also involved in another project where we got some really passionate crypto enthusiasts. We're trying to do a Bitcoin more cultural side. We have a website called hardforking.com where we share some news. We make some high quality video content. We got my friend Sean, who started the project there, and Didi from the Bitcoin family involved. And yeah, you come and check out us there. And yeah, thanks again for inviting me to the show, Max. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, the honor truly is on my side. And I think, Kris, you're a perfect example of what I believed that especially World Crypto Network, but of course the Bitcoin community in general was like. Because I just went back in the chat we had on Twitter, and you reached out on Saturday, introducing who you are and introducing your project. And immediately knocked me off my feet because, as I said, open source co-working spaces are a phenomenal idea, and especially those that are Bitcoin focused. And so if you in the chat have something interesting that you work on, reach out, be active in the community, not just to me, not just to the World Crypto Network, but in general. Enjoy it. Like, it's a lot of fun meeting all these people and collaborating on these ideas. And especially,
the community is friendly, community is open. And if you don't get an answer straight away, don't worry. People are busy. Just send another message. Don't be shy. I think this is the kind of key word. Don't be shy. If you don't ask, you don't know. So keep asking. There is no stupid questions. Ask for help if you need, or just reach out to the community and have a talk and brainstorm. And like Max said, I just chatted to Max on Wednesday, sent him a message what I'm doing, or Saturday on what we're doing, and here we are on Tuesday evening. So it can go quickly also.
Well, yeah. And again, it's the thing. Like, we are approachable. We are just people. Although we are on a 2D screen, we actually are meat space people.
Yeah.
And if you have something cool to talk about, honestly, reach out, and I will be honored to talk to anyone who is advancing the cause of liberty, and especially the cause of Bitcoin. So if you're doing this, if you're active in the community, thank you for bringing us forward. And let's intermingle, let's converse, and let's make sure that what we are actually doing here is going to be beautiful and prosperous. As always, thank you so much for joining me here today, again, on the show Open Source Everything, which is a community-funded show. It's been funded by amazing peers like you, that, by the way, saved my ass and getting rid of the current horrible old laptop that I have with the amazing open source focused hardware and software Purism laptop, which was funded by you, the peers, at tallyco.in/purism. So thank you very much for your support and your donation. That really means a lot. And I'm just glad and happy to collaborate to Bitcoin and the World Crypto Network, and to continue spreading this information and making sure that the idea of liberty is not forgotten. So Kris, it was an honor to talk to you, and hopefully again. And if I'm ever in Thailand, I will absolutely check out Satoshi's house, which I hope the people in the audience will as well.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Just send me a text when you come for holiday, and I'll take good care of you.
Oh, thank you very much for the offer, and I will take you up on it if our paths ever cross in Thailand.
Perfect. All right, buddy. Thank you very much for the chat, and it was great. And hopefully we'll speak soon again.
Oh yes, and hopefully at a more convenient time for you, because I imagine it's late and you're probably tired. So thank you for holding it out there, and see you, peers, on the next show. Bye-bye.